Hi, I'm Frank Hont. I'm the Regional Secretary of UNISON. I just wanted to say something about the formation of UNISON. UNISON is the public sector union, but it didn't drop out the sky. UNISON is a combination of three former partner unions, COSI, NALGO and NUPE. Prior to the merger, which was in 1993, those three unions operated quite separately. NALGO was the local government officers union, what could be described as a white-collar union. NUPE was a municipal workers union, mainly low-paid workers, men and women, working in the public sector, a blue-collar union. And COSI was a health workers union. So, you know, I had quite a variety of membership types. And the drive to bring those three unions together was a clear vision of a number of people. And from my perspective, one of the big drivers of that coming together of those three unions was a man called Rodney Bickerstaff, who at that time was the General Secretary of NUPE, an iconic figure in the trade union movement and someone who I'm proud to call my friend, who was the General Secretary of NUPE and had this vision that there should be a public sector union, that there should be no division between blue-collar workers and white-collar workers. And he saw it clearly in a class perspective, which is the right way to see things in my view. So he saw it as, you know, why wouldn't our class want to be united in their opposition to employers, in their opposition to government initiatives? So he drove this concept forward. He had another big idea, as it happens. He had a big idea for a statutory minimum wage, which he fought long and hard for, and which was finally delivered in the Labour government in post-97. But his real big idea was a public sector workers' union. Fascinating idea, but obviously quite challenging for some people who felt very close to their own unions. So a number of us came together in the three unions to try and promote this idea of a public sector union. So we started campaigning with inside our unions. We got the usual format. We got resolutions through committees. We sat long hours in committee meetings trying to convince people why it was a good idea, and eventually got a campaign running with some senior people in all three unions who felt it was a good idea. And so we started producing material, things like this Countdown to Unison, which was one of the big ideas. We've got to fix a date when we're going to be a new union. We've got to count down to it. We've got to get the three rule books sorted out, because unions are built on their rule books. And of course, a lot of people didn't want it to happen for all kinds of reasons. There were people who were opposed to change just because it was something different, something new. There were people who were opposed to it for political reasons. And one of the political reasons people were opposed to it was NUPE was affiliated to the Labour Party. NALGO wasn't. NALGO saw itself as an independent union with no need to affiliate to a political party. So, at the cusp, there was a lot of conflict about how we would be affiliated, or whether we would be affiliated to a political party. And that was the cause of a lot of angst within people who might have wanted the merger but were anxious about that position. There was also the usual problems about people saying, well, NUPE only want to join with NALGO because we've got loads of money, and NALGO and NUPE members saying, why would we want to join a union that employs our bosses? Because a lot of the NALGO members were managers or senior officers in local authorities who managed the very workers that were in NUPE. So there were all those kind of industrial issues that divided us. But, purely driving it forward as a class issue was the way we tried to deliver it. You're all workers. You all work whatever grade you're on. You work for a salary or a wage. Therefore, you should be in the same trade union. So that was the concept we continually drove forward. So it went through all the various committees of the three unions, went to their conferences, people agonised over it. It felt like years. It probably was years, actually, but it felt like years until in 1993 the merger was achieved. And I genuinely believe it was a great day for trade unionism, because if you look at UNISON now, it is 1.3 million members. And 16 years on, 17 years on, 50% of those people have never known anything but UNISON. More than half of our membership have only ever been in UNISON. So there are still diehards who talk about NALGO and NUPE and COSI, but they're slowly becoming the minority, because most people only have a concept of UNISON as the public sector trade union. So that's where we are now. I mean, the only other thing I'd say about it is those of us who drove it forward and believed in it probably wanted the best aspects of all three unions. Being an optimist, being a socialist and an optimist, you want the best of those three unions. So you might say we wanted NALGO's organisation, NALGO's administrative ability to deliver things, NALGO's organisation, and NALGO's internationalism. Because although NALGO wasn't affiliated to any particular political party, it was a fantastic union in support of the South African people, the Palestinian people, the Cuban people. So NALGO had an agenda, an international agenda, which was perhaps more progressive than UP's. So you'd like to think that in a perfect bringing together of those three unions, you brought NALGO's organisation, NALGO's internationalism. From UP, what we hoped to bring, and Rodney Bickerstaff always pushed this was, and it's true, that NUP members loved their union. And I don't use that word lightly. If you speak to NUP members, mainly women members, because there was a lot of women members in very senior positions in NUP, they loved their union. At the last NUP conference, which I was at, people were crying, sobbing because their union was going. They wanted to move into a new world. They were prepared to move into UNISON, but they had a kind of love for their union that NALGO members never had. And I think that was something we were trying to bring through. And COSI were embedded in the health service. So if we could have brought their knowledge, their understanding of the health service through, that would have been the perfect storm to have brought those three things together. Now, many people would argue what we ended up with was the three worst aspects of all three unions, such as, this has been argued many times, NALGO's bureaucracy, NALGO's obsession with committees, NALGO's obsession with taking everything through a democratic process, NUP's backward-looking views on international issues, and COSI's old-fashioned approach to the world. So that's one extreme. I still like to think that we did bring most of the best attributes through, but to some extent it doesn't matter. Because now you've got more than 50% of the members only knowing UNISON. We have a UNISON culture to develop. And we have started to develop a UNISON culture. And I believe that culture is about progressive trade unionism. It's about democracy. We're probably the most democratic trade union in the country. And it's about a campaigning union. And recently, this Million Voices campaign is a good example of how we're trying to address issues that affect the people our workers work for. Because most of our workers work in the community and provide essential community services. So if we can form an alliance with the people we provide the services for, there's some hope that we can do something about these horrendous cuts that the coalition are bringing in. And not only cuts, because this government delivers a change in society, a shift in society, and we're not going to let that happen.